the 2010 Atlanta Press Club Debates, brought to you live from Georgia Public Broadcasting. Tonight, the race for insurance commissioner.
Good evening. I'm Brenda Wood, evening news anchor for WXIA-TV 11 Alive Atlanta. We'd like to welcome our viewers, our listeners on GPB Radio, and our live studio audience to the 2010 Atlanta Press Club Debate Series, originating from the studios of Georgia Public Broadcasting. This is the debate among the candidates for insurance commissioner, so let's get started. We're going to meet the candidates in alphabetical order. Shane Bruce is the Libertarian candidate. He runs the Bludgeon and Skewer blog, which covers politics here in Georgia. Ralph Hudgens, the Republican nominee, has served in the state Senate since 2002. And Mary Squires is the Democratic nominee and served in the Georgia General Assembly for 7 years. Currently, Squires is the executive director of the Georgia Society of Professional Benefit Administrators, Incorporated. Our format tonight, in the first round, the candidates will each answer a question from one of our three panelists. In the second round, each candidate will ask a question of his or her opponent. There will be an opportunity for rebuttal in that round. And in the third round, the panelists will continue questioning the candidates. Finally, each candidate will have 30 seconds to make a closing statement. Now, before we get started, let's meet our three panelists selected by the Atlanta Press Club. First, we have Walter Jones, Atlanta Bureau Chief for Morris News Service. Next, we have Andy Peters, who is a legal reporter for the Daily Report. And our final panelist is Veronica Waters, a legal reporter for WSB Radio. So, let's get started with this debate. In the first round, the candidates will be asked a question by one of our panelists. The candidate will have 60 seconds to answer that question. So, Walter Jones asks the first question tonight of Ralph Hudgens.
Good evening, and thank you for participating. Mr. Hudgens, does the fact that John Oxendine is chairing a campaign fundraiser for you mean that you endorse his operation of the insurance department and his professional credibility?
Walter, thank you for asking me that question. I'm going to, I guess, put it like Ronald Reagan put it many years ago. When somebody endorsed him, he said, "They endorsed me. I did not endorse them." And if John Oxendine wants to host or be a co-host or honorary host for a fundraiser, I think it's fantastic. I think the fact that I'm the Republican nominee and John has been 16 years Republican insurance commissioner, he would like to see that position to stay in Republican hands, and so consequently he endorsed me, and I'm proud to have that endorsement. I'm glad that he's helping me raise money so I can do the things that need to be done to be elected as Georgia's next insurance commissioner.
All right. Now, Andy Peters will ask a question of Shane Bruce.
Mr. Bruce, a Libertarian has not won a statewide race in Georgia. How do you explain to people that if they vote for you, they're not throwing away their vote?
Oh, those are fighting words. Wasted vote syndrome. Terrible thing, terrible thing. Let's examine the question why a Libertarian candidate hasn't won a statewide race in Georgia. Bottom line, gentlemen, ladies, members of the audience, it's a matter of money. It's a matter of money. It's a matter of money. In traditional politics in our day and age that we live in, the candidate with most bucks wins the race, hands down. He can buy the media support he needs. He can find the staff support he needs. Libertarians run on ideals. We run on liberty. We run on equality. We run on the concept of justice for each and every Georgian. We will continue to run. Whether we win or whether we lose, we will continue our efforts.
And our final question in this round is Veronica Waters. She questions Mary Squires.
Good evening, Ms. Squires. The insurance industry is predominantly regulated at the state level, and the recent market meltdown that we've seen, as well as financial industry overlap, blurring the lines with companies like AIG, has strengthened some calls for federal oversight and regulation of the industry. Agree, disagree? Your thoughts?
Well, let's just take it straight to the Federal Health Reform Act. That's something that this is a problem that we've had where folks in this race have not read the federal bill. The There's some parts of it that I know that we all like. Pre-existing conditions being covered, our children being on our coverage until they're 25 years old. These are good things. But what we don't like is the federal government coming in and trying to take over the state's business. I am for states' rights, and as insurance commissioner, I will definitely work within the system, but I'll get Georgians the best coverage that we can.
That concludes round one. It is now time for our candidates to ask a question of the opponent of his or her choice. You have 30 seconds for the questions, 60 seconds for the answer, and 30 seconds for a rebuttal. By random selection, Shane Bruce is going to ask the first question.
My question is for candidate Hudgens. Candidate Hudgens, you're the $1 million candidate in this race. You jumped in June. You raised a prodigious amount of cash. You won your primary. A bitter fight. Congratulations to you on that, sir. But I have a question. You know, in my race for this office, I've said I will not take money from people who work in the insurance industry, from people who own the insurance industries, or for people who lobby insurance industries. I want to know the rationalization that you go through when you take those envelopes and slip them in your pocket.
Well, that's an easy question to answer. These are the people that have an interest in the race. Who is the insurance commissioner? And I'm sure it'll probably come up maybe from another candidate. Many of the lobbyists did ask me to run because they had seen me operate as the chairman of the Senate Insurance Committee for 6 years. They saw that I was fair, that my door was always open, that I was consistent, that I would answer phone calls, I would have appointments, I listened to both sides of the issue and made the best decision for the people of the state of Georgia, and that's the way I will continue to be as the insurance commissioner if on November 2nd they elect me to that position. I don't see any problem with taking individuals' money. You're a libertarian. You think that individuals have rights. And if you said that they could not contribute to my candidacy as an individual, then you would be stepping on their rights. And I don't think you agree with that.
Ralph Hudgens, your question for one of your opponents.
Well,
before we go on, you do get a rebuttal. So, Shane?
Oh, no.
You have nothing to say.
I believe the candidate Hudgens' response was what I expected to hear.
Okay. All right. So, Ralph Hudgens, you do now have an opportunity to ask your opponent a question.
Okay. Thank you, Brenda. I've been beat up for my associated with lobbyists and saying the lobbyists have invited me to run for insurance commissioner, that I'm in their pocket and everything else. And I guess my question to Ms. Squires is, you know, you need the people of Georgia need somebody that's going to shoot straight with them. I have never once ever heard you on your website or on any of your presentations, and we've been in a lot of them, that you've ever told the people that you are indeed a registered lobbyist. And I'm just asking you, why are you hiding the fact that the industry that
we are out of
give your
time.
paychecks?
All right, Ms. Squires.
Well, I'm not hiding it. In fact, anyone who affects legislation has to register to be a lobbyist in the state. That includes folks who work for the AARP and folks who also work for the Georgia Baptist Convention. They're registered as lobbyists in the state as well. I'm not a lobbyist for insurance companies. I'm an advocate for consumers. I don't take legislators out for expensive dinners, take them on trips, or take them out for sports tickets, events. And as chairman of the Senate Insurance Committee, Senator Hudgens has taken over $20,000 in lobbyist-sponsored trips, gifts, and meals. You have to wonder, when Senator Hudgens has taken this kind of money from insurance companies, how's he going to behave as insurance commissioner?
Mr. Hudgens?
I think that as insurance commissioner, I can behave with the same ethical standards that I've had before. I have never allowed a trip or a meal or anything else to influence my vote. And the same thing would be true as insurance commissioner. I have a very high ethical standard. I'm a very dedicated Christian, and I don't want to do anything that would reflect poorly on my Lord.
Our final question of this round will come from Mary Squires.
And my question is for Senator Hudgens. On your financial disclosures, you say that you're worth $8.5 million. Yet you've taken, as I mentioned before, $20,000 in lobbyist gifts, vacations, and tickets to major sporting events. You even said that you decided to run because lobbyists asked you to. You obviously can pay for these things yourself. So why do you let lobbyists lavish you with these gifts? And just who are you planning to work for?
All right.
You're correct. I do have a sizable net worth, and that's because of the fact that I have participated in the American dream. I've taken an idea of starting a propane gas business. I put wheels on that wagon. It was very successful. I've invested in other businesses with my children. They have been successful. So I do have a high net worth. But that doesn't have anything to do with whether or not I'm a capable insurance commissioner. I think as a small businessman that I understand, you know, I'll just stop there.
All right. All right. That concludes our second round here for those who may be joining us. But before we do, I want to give Ms. Squires one chance to have a rebuttal.
Certainly. No one begrudges Senator Hudgens his net worth. But you just have to ask, when you take those kind of gifts, trips, and sporting events tickets and vacations at lobbyist expense when you don't have to, are you going to work for consumers? Who are you going to work for as Commissioner of Insurance?
All right. Now that concludes our second round for those who may be joining our program in progress now. This is the debate among the candidates for Insurance Commissioner. For our third round, we return to our panel of journalists who will be asking questions of the candidates of his or her choice. The candidate will be allowed 60 seconds to respond. As moderator, I will determine if a rebuttal is necessary. So we begin this round with a question from Walter Jones.
Since we're talking about lobbyists, let me ask you, Ms. Squires, do you feel like that you may have traded on your short career in the legislature to lead to your job as a lobbyist now?
No, actually, this is what I did before I went to work in the legislature and before I went into the Army. My father and I had a small governmental affairs consulting business. We also did risk management work for our church. We lobbied for our church as well. That's something that, again, in Georgia, you have to be registered, and if you are a nonprofit organization, as I represent a nonprofit organization, you must register as a lobbyist, and I certainly have never traded on that. That's what I did.
All right. Our next question comes from Andy Peters.
This is for Senator Hudgens. Senator, what would you do to encourage insurance companies to set up their headquarters or to domicile in the state of Georgia?
Well, the main thing that we could do is to reduce the premium tax in the state of Georgia. The premium tax is the third highest in the United States, and that keeps companies from wanting to domicile in Georgia because of the retribution tax that they have to pay other states when they operate out of Georgia. Now, as insurance commissioner, I can't change that. That would be influenced, or that would be controlled by the General Assembly, and I would work with them, and I do have a close relationship, having served in the General Assembly for 14 years. I would be able to work with them, the Republican majority in the Senate and the House, and ask them to reduce this premium tax so more companies would come into Georgia and set up their clean industries here. In fact, I talked to this commission the other day that has been established and asked them to please consider reducing the 2.25% that goes into the general fund, and that would help Georgia.
All right. And now Veronica Waters with her question.
If I may, I'd like to address this question to all three candidates. We can start with Mr. Bruce. Will you establish procedures to review rate increases which are different from the current powers of the administration, and if so, how?
Well, that's a good question because there's going to be a lot of change in the wind. Right now we're all dealing with the effects and ramifications of the impending change in our healthcare delivery system, commonly known as Obamacare. The Office of the Commissioner of Insurance regulates insurance. That won't change. If I'm elected, we'll continue to regulate insurance. We will have to figure out ways and means to comply with federal statutes, state statutes, and more importantly, the desires of the citizens of the state of Georgia. The insurance commissioner is supposed to represent the people of Georgia, not the companies that do business here. He's in charge of running them, not the other way around.
All right. You ended just in time. We want to clarify that if a question goes to all of the candidates, then each candidate will get 30 seconds to answer that question. So, Mr. Hudgens?
Okay. As insurance commissioner, I would like to take the procedure for approving rate increases or decreases away from the commissioner, because right now it's on prior approval and every decision has to go to him for his personal endorsement of that decision. I would like to move to what we have, file and use, which we implemented in 2007, which is responsible for about every third commercial on TV saying, switch to my insurance company and you can save $300.
Ms. Squires?
We actually have file and use in the state, as Senator Hudgens mentions, but the insurance commissioner has been blocking the rates being changed, as they should. And as insurance commissioner, I'll make sure that the rates are reviewed very carefully and quickly. We have a problem in the department with efficiency, and I'll make sure that the Department of Insurance is fast and efficient and fair.
Another question from our journalist, Walter Jones.
Senator Hudgens, you mentioned that you've been in the legislature for 14 years and that you would use that influence to convince legislators to change the premium tax. What in those 14 years did you do to lowering the premium tax?
Well, this most recently I've introduced an amendment which was adopted, and then the governor said he would not accept it when we were talking about the provider fee increase in the state of Georgia to balance the budget. I introduced an amendment and it was adopted that said that you could have a corresponding reduction in premium tax on health policies, and that would encourage health insurance companies to come into Georgia and offer more policies to the people of Georgia.
Andy Peters?
This is for Ms. Squires. In addition to the area of rate increases, how do you assess the level of regulation of insurance companies in the state of Georgia?
Well, by assessing the level of regulation, you go over every bit of legislation that's come through the legislature, and you review all the regulation, the policy and procedures, and the forms. That office has been abysmally regulated in the last 16 years. The regulations are old, they are not modern, and they certainly make us not very attractive to insurance companies. Certainly we have problems with the premium tax, but the other reason for insurance companies not coming to Georgia is because the insurance commissioner's office is slow. It has limited technology, and they just are not interested in doing their job quickly. And that comes down from the insurance commissioner himself.
All right. Mr. Bruce, you seem to have something to say, so I'll give you...
No, I was just appreciating Ms. Squires' comments.
All right.
Enthralling, absolutely enthralling.
All right. Veronica Waters.
Thanks, Brenda. New census data for the 2008-2009 years says that nearly 21% of non-elderly Georgians is uninsured today. Mr. Hudgens, how do we address this crisis, particularly if you do feel that parts of the health insurance reform that was championed by the White House are overreaching?
Well, I think definitely they're overreaching. In fact, I think it's unconstitutional. That's why I introduced Senate Bill 411, which was adopted and signed by the governor, that said that no Georgians could be forced to purchase health insurance against their will, and that no employer or employee could be fined if they didn't purchase health insurance. I think that that state-based regulation of insurance is where it needs to stay, and we need to adopt the policies just like a business does. We need to push the decision making down the ladder and let people make decisions. And my problem with the bureaucracy is the fact that they often say no so they can protect their job. I think they ought to have a reason to say no. I think if in doubt, they need to say yes.
Ms. Squires, a rebuttal?
Senator Hudgens is wrong. The legislature is responsible for making this decision. Senator Hudgens is a career politician who's been at this for 14 years. He says that he did something about health reform. but that doesn't work because it rolls downhill. The federal government has instituted the Federal Health Reform Act, and Senator Hudgens has said that he can't do squat about it. If he can't do squat about it as a legislator, how is he going to do anything about it as an insurance commissioner, especially after taking $20,000 worth of money from insurance companies?
We're out of time. Thank you very much.
Can I rebut that?
I will yield to you.
Okay.
Very
I did
quickly,
say he
sir.
can't do squat, and I stand by that, and the AJC did a fact check and said I was right. The only people that could do it was the Attorney General, and we had a Democrat Attorney General that would not challenge Obama on the behalf of the state of Georgia. The governor's the second person that can do that, and he did challenge it. And the third entity that could do it is the General Assembly, and I authored the bill to protect the citizens of Georgia from this intrusion by the federal government called Obamacare. So, Ms. Squires, you're wrong.
Our next question, Walter Jones.
Thank you. I would like to ask Senator Hudgens about legislation that would have affected whether homes and new buildings had to have fire sprinklers. Is that something, do you think, as fire marshal, which is part of the job as insurance commissioner, would you be in favor of requiring the sprinklers or not?
I think that that's an encroachment, and I think that Mr. Bruce would agree with me that that would be an too much encroachment by government. Now, in a commercial building, I think yes, they ought to have fire sprinkler protection, but to require new construction to have a sprinkler sticking out of the ceiling over your bedroom or over your dining room table, that's too much government. You know, America's great because of what the people have done for themselves, not because of what the government has done for the people. We need to reduce the size of government. We need to reduce the amount of regulation. We need the government needs to be like the official on a football field, where they throw a flag if somebody's done something wrong and they blow the whistle when you step out of bounds. Other than that, they need to let the game play. And so, no, I don't think that we need to have regulations that require a new home to have a sprinkler over their bed.
Next question from Andy Peters.
This is for Mary Squires. In the past, Georgia has had an office that served as kind of an oversight agency, consumer advocate for an oversight of the insurance commissioner, served as sort of a consumer advocate. Would you be in favor of the creation of an office like that, or would you sort of try to take that role on for yourself as insurance commissioner?
That office was created when I and Senator Hudgens were in the House of Representatives, and yes, I did vote for it. And the reason I voted for it was because Oxendine, who didn't win his bid for governor, has been one of the most corrupt politicians that we've had in a long time in Georgia, and he needed some oversight. As insurance commissioner, I am quite confident that I will be able to balance advocacy of consumers with being able to do my job by bringing more business into the state and providing a fair, competitive regulatory environment.
We have no more time now for questions from our journalists. Each of the candidates in the election for Insurance Commission will now have 30 seconds for a closing statement. And by random selection, our first closing statement ironically comes from Mary Squires.
Thank you very much to the Atlanta Press Club and GPB. I'd like to thank you all for the opportunity to speak, and the Insurance Commissioner's race is certainly the most important statewide office that will be filled this year because it directly affects every person and business in the state. My parents raised me to serve my country and my community, and my time in the United States Army taught me that's not enough to have a vision for what you hope to accomplish. You have to have a plan. And as insurance commissioner, I'll be a watchdog for Georgia consumers, protecting everyone's pocketbook. Thank you very much.
All right, Mr. Hudgens.
Thank you to the Atlanta Press Club and Georgia Public TV. I also want to thank my wife, Suzanne, who's here in the audience with us. She has been with me on the road. We've gone over 100,000 miles over the last 19 months, everywhere in Georgia, trying to convince the people that I'm the best qualified for this position. My motto is experience is the difference. I have 14 years of experience in the legislature and the relationships that go with that. I'm a small businessman. I've got administrative experience in the first Bush White House, and I would like to ask for your vote on November 2nd.
All right. And Mr. Bruce.
I'm Shane Bruce, Libertarian candidate for Commissioner of Insurance. I want the people of Georgia to know a couple things. I can outrun, outride, outshoot, outfight, outhunt, and outfish anybody standing on this stage. I am a true son of liberty. I believe in that. There's two things I'd like you to do. First, I'd like your support, I'd like your vote. I'd like to win this race. It'd be exciting. The other thing I'd like you to do is when you step into the ballot box on November 2nd, I want you to vote for Libertarian John Mons, our candidate for governor. It's the single most important thing you can do this election cycle. Thank you.
All right. That concludes our debate here, but before we go, we want to name our participants and thank them as well. Mary Squires, Ralph Hudgens, and Shane Bruce, who are the candidates for Insurance Commissioner. Thank you very much for being a part of this today. And our journalist panel here, which includes Walter Jones, Andy Peters, and Veronica Waters. All right. A reminder that the general elections will be Tuesday, November 2nd, and early voting ends this Friday, October 29th. Our thanks again to the candidates and our panel of journalists. We also like to thank the Atlanta Press Club for arranging this debate. For more information about the Atlanta Press Club, you may visit atlantapressclub.org. The debates that air on Georgia Public Broadcasting will be archived in the Press Club's website. So the broadcast has been streamed live and will be available on demand on GPB's website, gpb.org. I'm Brenda Wood. Thank you very much for joining us for this general election debate. We invite you now to stay tuned for the GPB debate for candidates for Attorney General. That's coming up next.
The Atlanta Press Club debate series is made possible in part by donations from the late Tom Watson Brown and Emory University.